morning, everybody, and welcome to another great episode of the Full Spectrum Education Podcast. Today on the show, we have our guest, Magnus Olson from M26Fit, and I'll let Magnus introduce himself once again in a minute. But obviously, my residence hosts, Serge Romano and Mr. Robert Haugh, are returning from Leverage Sales Coaching and from Inspire Health Services in Brisbane. Magnus, it's been a little bit of a gap between films. For those who follow the show every week, we always take a little bit of a mid-season break, if you will. So, Magnus, what's been happening?
Oh, mate, same old, trying to stay active, stay busy, filming podcasts, got a hockey tournament coming up, so pretty excited about that. So trying to get a bit of extra training in, but yeah, it's busy times, but good times, enjoying life.
Magnus, I actually just booked my accommodation for that same hockey tournament yesterday, and off camera, I'll share with you a little tweet to my booking that I made that I'm sure you'll give you a few smiles. So let's dive into today's topic, which is a great segue, and we've received it via email with one of our viewers. Great topic, and it's how does being mindful about physical activity in your daily routine impact your life? And I couldn't think of three other gentlemen that I would rather discuss that topic with. And I think I'm going to throw Mr. Romano under the bus this morning because we're in a guys. We normally film at night, but today we're changing things up. We're filming in the morning, so I can see that Mr. Romano is full of energy and ready to tell us about how he's so mindful of his physical activity daily. So, Serge, the floor is yours.
Well, actually, that's not true. I'm actually not full of energy at all. But can you imagine if I was? So the really funny, interesting story, everybody. Right, my dog has done its cruciate ligament. So Rob, you'd appreciate this. So we've had to take it and have an operation about a week ago. So it's in rehabilitation stage.
Oh, mate.
And it's not fun when the dog thinks there's nothing wrong with it and still wants to jump all over the place. And so we've got to cage it up, and it's got to sleep in it, and we've got to sleep with it so that it doesn't do. It's like, oh my God. Anyway, the things you do for dogs, but all part of the family. But beautiful segue, because they are part of your well-being, you see. You know, my dog gives me so much pleasure and joy as far as, go for runs with it and walks with it, prior to the cruciate ligament, of course. But I think it's really important that your physical and mental well-being, I believe, drives you at the end of the day. I mean, I know that sounds so, like, well, of course it does. I mean, if you're not good in the mind, you're not good physically, well then, life ain't that crash hot, right? But my point is that doesn't just happen by accident. You have to do things to make sure that your mind and your body is in reasonably healthy and good shape, right? I'm not talking about it being in, Greek Adonis kind of physique or anything along those lines. But at the end of the day, how many people have you heard, and how many books have you read, and etc., where it's like, people that don't do or haven't done exercise for a while, or they don't at least have some kind of break from their work environment, or even sometimes their own family and friend environment, right? Because it's like that can get to you after a while. If you don't have certain things that you do to either break that kind of stuff, or from a physical perspective, doing those things, which then clears the mind and gives you the opportunity of taking more things in. So many people say that they feel so ordinary when that's not happening in their life. I mean, I hear it all the time. And I'll speak for myself. I go for a run 5 odd days, 6 days a week, right? If I haven't done that for 2 or 3 days in a row, I already sense that I'm not feeling myself. I don't feel, as sharp. I don't feel like I'm right there, and I just think that if you're not doing any form of consistent and frequent physical activity, I think you're missing out on just being the best version of yourself. That's all. That's not to sound so, for lack of a better word, excuse my French here, wanky or anything like that. That's not meant to sound that way, but I just think that that's the case. And mentally, you've got to do things that can sort of, shut you away from things that don't necessarily make you feel good or are good, right? So don't do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, right? So I think mentally, people like to, read books. Some people like to go and watch a movie. Some people like to go for walks. Some people like to do all these different things. Find what that is and then make sure that you do those things so that you do clear your mind where possible. So whether it's physical or whether it's mental, I think the well-being thing for everybody today is probably more important than ever. So that's where I sit with it.
Mr. Olson, I know that you've obviously launched a brand which literally focuses on, I don't want to speak out of school here, but maximizing your opportunity to partake in all facets of life. So, tell us a bit more about, without going into too much detail about the brand, but talk to me about why you built a brand around, health and well-being, because what Serge just said for me is really true. If we prioritize these areas in life, we will reap the benefits on a daily basis. So what was your thoughts around that matter?
Yeah, well, obviously my brand, it's all about strong mind, strong body. And I believe that you need to spend an equal amount of time working not only on your physicality, but also mentally. That obviously had through some areas in my life, and so it's very much a way of life. I agree what Serge was saying, that at the end of the day, it's important and it's a conscious decision. You can't just expect it to happen. You need to be proactive about it. And activity for me is exactly the same as Serge. If I don't do any physical activity for 2 or 3 days, I notice it. I try to do something every single day. And then the other part of it, I think that it's finding something that you do enjoy. At the end of the day, trying to do an activity that you don't enjoy. If you love running, by all means, go for a run. There's some people that whether just going for a walk is enough just to get a little bit of a heart rate up, and doing something every single day is, I think, paramount. And then the other part of it is nutrition is a massive thing. I think that we all know the saying that you can't out-train a bad diet. And at the end of the day, what you put into your body physically is also going to have an impact on your mind. And secondly, that also depends on what you put into your mind. If you're watching a bunch of negativity, personally, I don't watch the news. I don't watch a lot of free-to-air TV, but I just try and feed myself in empowering and inspiring material that keeps me in a positive mindset.
And Magnus, having known you for as many years as I have, I can say that, when we didn't know each other as well, and I was watching you from afar, I always used to think, why is that guy so positive all the time? So, it can become very infectious, Magnus, and anyone who knows your brand and knows what you do, anyone who's watching this podcast, I encourage you to check out M26Fit, because you will see that in abundance with Magnus, and he's, a great person to have in your network. And, I know if you shoot him an email, he'll get back to you same day. I pretty much guarantee that, guys. So feel free to check that out. Mr. Robert Haugh, I know that I can speak from a personal perspective. You are very good at coaching people around when they're in recovery mode, or they're in rebuild mode, or whether they're just trying to maintain a high performance mode. Talk to me about how you do that for yourself. How do you keep that? For those who don't know, I'm going to share some personal news, guys. Rob's recently become a father. Congratulations, Rob. I'm assuming, I'm not a father yet myself, but I'm assuming for the other 3 fathers in this podcast that, to help others, you have to keep yourself at a high priority. So, Robert, during this time of your life, how have you done that?
Absolutely. Thanks, Ben, first of all. Absolutely. Through this first period of time that I've had with little Thomas for, what is it now, 15, 16 days, been still training every single day, hydrated, probably training and eating and hydrating myself the best I've actually ever been. Part of that is also because I'm not working, so I'm not as busy with that sort of thing. But what's fresh on my mind is basically starting to make sure that I'm setting myself up to be at my best for him. That I'm setting up behaviors and I'm setting up habits in myself that I've already set up a little bit, but once again, it just makes it a little bit more, I guess, a little bit more prominent on my mind and being a bit more mindful about it, about what I'm doing. He can't really pick up on much right now, but, starting to develop those habits right now for when he gets older, he can see me exercising every day. He sees me drinking water. He sees me eating well. And he wants to do all those same things too, because as our first role models are our parents when we're growing up. So you want to be able to set that example. So I guess this experience and I guess what's been happening in my life right now has made health even more so. I guess at the top of my mind, at the front of my mind, for sure. So yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that Serge and Magnus have said. Training, eating well, and doing it consistently, and having the discipline to do it consistently is always the biggest thing. The consistency is the absolute most important factor with all this. When I'm working with clients, when I'm coaching them, it's all about what can people do consistently. I'm not going to make lofty, unrealistic sort of goals or work with them on goals that are unrealistic. I try and set realistic goals. I try and set up behaviors, habits, and methods or ways that people can exercise and do their rehabilitation that they can be consistent with. That's the most important thing. If you can set these massive goals and set people to go for runs, then maybe they're not a runner. Try and set them to go for a run, and then they come back in a week and they haven't done their run. And it's like, well, mate, we haven't gone forward. We haven't progressed. So actually learning and understanding what's actually doable, what's actually enjoyable for them, and what's actually going to be realistic, I think is the most important thing. And then you can build from there. You might start with someone who just starts with a walk and you're walking for 15 to 20 minutes. But once they build consistency, once they build momentum, all of a sudden goals and mindsets start to change, and then they're looking for bigger things. You want to try and create that hunger and motivation in people by gaining little wins. Winning is, there's that dopamine effect. When you win, you want to win more, and you want to win more, you want to win more. You want to try and do that with your clients. You want to try and do that with the people you work with, so that then they become more hungry to then push on and progress a little bit more. So that's what I generally always try and think about when I'm coaching people, when I'm working with people. What can we be consistent with? How can we get wins early on? Because that's going to build something better. Whenever people go through rehab, my goal is not to get people back to where they were. It's to get them back to a version of themselves that's better than what they were when they walked in to see me. And that's just into Inspire in general, working with my team. They help me elevate people to another level as well. So that's how I think about these things. That's how I think about health. And I guess that's how, recent events have brought health to the front of my mind.
It's a hard act to follow. So to finish off, I'll just tune in on a few of the things that you guys talked about. Discipline and mindset. When we can have that discipline and mindset for ourselves, it impacts our circle around us. That pretty much is me in a nutshell. So I try and have a good discipline and a good mindset around it. So guys, for those who are listening to this podcast, I tie mine into events, right? So I've gone and got a big framed board, and it's got the 2 most recent charity events that I did. I'm going to be talking to Magnus off camera about if you'd like to join our team next year to ride the Tour de Brisbane. And I think that we should all have a big team in the Tour de Brisbane and do that. Magnus is a great cyclist for anyone who hasn't seen him ride. We've got a couple of really good cyclists in our team now, so I think it would be really good to ride that. Rob, maybe we can rope you into it.
I'm not a cyclist, man. You won't catch me in there.
Oh, mate, I've seen those legs. Come on now.
Nope.
So, look, in terms of that, and the other thing that I'm going for, guys, is next year I'm doing my 3rd Dakota challenge. So I'm doing the 100K in that. I would love to see Magnus's positivity on the trails. I reckon it would pull me in the right direction. So look, jokes aside, guys, everyone has their own motivation, whether it's daily, whether it's charity driven, whether it's impacting others, but I think what I want to tie it back to is if you impact yourself, you're in a position to then impact others.
Can I just also just say one more thing before we wrap it up, Ben? If anyone watching this is really interested in taking this to a whole new level, my greatest mentor is, you know, Ben, you know, and you guys have probably heard me talk about, and all of you have heard me talk about a gentleman by the name of Jack Daly, who's, you know, one of the greatest sales coaches around. However, one of the things that he does, he's a triathlete. He's done so many things. He's got a book, and it's called Life by Design. I thoroughly recommend you read it. So Jack Daly, Life by Design. It's very, very good. It's right up the alley about what we're talking about right here.
Thank you, Serge, so much for sharing that. For anyone who wants to check that book out, please do, guys. I know that I've had recommendations of Serge before, and I can honestly tell you they were well worth the look into them. So, guys, for this week's show, thank you everyone for listening. You can tell that we're all passionate about this topic. If you want to ask questions, follow up, any of that, please get in touch with the handles after this podcast. And guys, have a great week, and we will see you all in next week's show.